Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by MMA veteran Matthew Riddle. Matthew, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Matthew, let's go back in time a little bit and work our way to the present day. Let's go step by step here. 2013 was a wild ride for you, to say the least. You picked up a win against Che Mills, but then it was overturned to a no contest after you tested positive for marijuana for the second time. You were released by the UFC. You got your release from the UFC. You signed with Legacy Fighting Championships, the Texas-based promotion. From there, you were preparing for a fight, and you were going to fight Artenis Young. Let's start there. How long were you into your training camp for the Artenis Young fight when you found out that your contract had been bought by Bellator?
I was training for it for a while because when I signed a contract with Legacy, I was supposed to be fighting in May.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I was training for a fight in May. Then they, send me a fight contract,
Right.
And it was for March, or it was not March, it was a couple months after May. It was like June or July.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked, I talked to them, and they're like, yeah, we can have you fight in May for less money. And, that's when I kind of put my training on the back burner just for salary. I wasn't training 3 times a day, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm not fighting in May.
Right.
And I don't know if I'll even be able to fight, in the upcoming months, because I didn't know if they could afford what they offered me. They offered me, good numbers. Mm-hmm. And then, shortly after that, I was bought out by Bellator, and then, the whole Bellator thing I really can't even legally get into.
Right.
So, and that's why, after they released me, I didn't say a word, and I'm not going to say a word. I'm happy. Mm-hmm. I'm released. I'm not dealing with them. They're not dealing with me, and that's that.
Mm-hmm. I know you can't say a whole lot, but just the beginning of that, the beginning of your relationship with Bellator, how did that all come together where they went in and bought your contract? Was that something that you were aware of, that was something in the works, or was it something...
My manager at the time said he knew Sam Kaplan,
right.
And they really were interested in signing me. I know they're owned by Viacom, so I know right. They have money, Mm-hmm. And so, I talked to my manager, I was like, yeah, if they work out a deal, they want to buy me out or whatever, but, I'm not trying to work for people that can't pay me what they're going to pay me. Mm-hmm. And, honestly, I'm saying more than I should even say.
Right.
So, you shouldn't even ask me anymore about the situation. That would be best.
Okay. Fair enough. Now, when you retired from the sport, because that also happened during this time, was this a real retirement? Were you truly done with the sport? Because we've seen this, sometimes, when somebody suffers an injury or when they, are, disappointed with the way things are going.
Of course I wasn't going to retire. It
right.
was to make an example because mm-hmm. I didn't want to be treated a certain way mm-hmm. by certain people. And you know what? They stopped treating me that way, but then it kind of reoccurred, and that's whatever. And I'm not going to talk about it anymore. And I'm legally not allowed to talk about it anymore.
Okay. Sounds good. So,
if I could, I would tell you everything from A to Z. Okay. I can't.
Okay. I understand. Now, Titan, how did this all come together, and how long after you were done with Bellator did they come in?
I was done with Bellator, and at that point, I really didn't want to deal with anybody in mixed martial arts just because nobody does what they say they're going to do, and it seemed like, I'm just one of those guys, I tell how it is, and I shoot from the hip, and, a lot of they weren't. And, Titan, I cornered my one buddy who fought for them, and they were to the T with him, and then they talked to me. They mentioned me working with them in the future, and I said I'd be more than happy to. They got a deal on CBS. I was one of the first people they called, and it's been great. They told me what they're going to pay me, and, it's not the greatest amount. I'm not thrilled, but, they told me, and they were honest, and I can appreciate that, and I'm more than happy to fight for them. And they told me where I was going to be on the televised card, and they lived up to that. They've done everything they said they're going to do. So, honestly, I'm stoked. I'm excited, and they haven't done one thing wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Were they the major player coming after you once you left Bellator, or whatever happened? You weren't really a part of the organization because you never fought for them. You were contracted with them, but like you said, you never really were a part of it because you never fought for them. But were they the major organization that came in and offered you, or were there other players involved?
The World Series of Fighting contacted me. Ali contacted me from World Series of Fighting, and from what I hear, he's a nice enough guy. But every time he'd call me, he'd offer me a fight or a 4-fight deal, and I would, we'd go back and forth on some numbers because I'm not trying to sign a contract unless I'm going to get paid, decent money. And every time we agree on a number or I shoot him a number, he just doesn't get back to me. And then, then you'll hit me up a couple months later and be like, hey, I got a fight in like 8 weeks, 4-fight deal for like 5-5, 6-6, 7-7, 8-8. And it's like, nah, I'm good. It's like, I'd rather just fight one fight at a time and get paid less money and not have somebody own me. That's basically what I'm sick of, when people feel like, oh, I signed with this organization. What did you sign to? It's like, what did you get? They're not paying you for nothing. You got to fight to get paid. They're not giving you sponsorship money that they're getting, and they own you. You get to use your rights. You don't get to do anything. So I don't see how signing a 4-fight deal with somebody or signing a couple-year deal with somebody is a good thing, unless they're giving you money right up front.
Right. When did this...
Nobody is.
Definitely. Now, when did this approach to signing a contract, when did that come into play? Was that, going through this whole ordeal, or was that something that, when you left the UFC, that was something that you had really thought about?
When I left the UFC, I just wanted to start fighting, ready to get, I'm on a 4-fight win streak. Right. I haven't been getting injured, I've been fighting more conservatively. I haven't been going out there just going for fight of the night.
Right.
So it's like I'm winning. I'm not getting bruised up or hurt, and, I was just trying to stay active. I signed a deal with Legacy. I was supposed to fight 3 times in like 7 months.
Right.
And with the numbers on paper, I would have made good money in 7 months,
Right.
But that never happened. Bellator bought me out with not much fight from Legacy, of course, As it happened, it just happened,
Right.
And then, the whole Bellator situation, And and now we're in this situation, and I'm more than happy with the Titan deal. They were happy to sign me to 1 fight at a time. Because I said after the last year, I'm really not trying to I don't want to sign a contract, Unless I was getting a signing bonus or I knew they were going to promote me properly. And so far, Titan's probably the only people that have promoted me properly. They've been telling me, hey, these people want to interview you, do this, do that. And they're actually promoting me, helping me, and, doing their part as a promotion, So, yeah.
Was Legacy, were they something that was possible again, or was it just basically when you were bought out, you were kind of done with them, like they weren't going to come back?
You know what? It was a little foggy situation with my manager. My manager was really in that one. He set that deal up, and I'm not going to bring up names, but
sure.
It ended up being a misunderstanding when it all came down to it when I left, and of course I had no hard feelings towards them, and I don't think the promoter of Legacy or anything, the owner of Legacy, has a problem with me. It was just that my manager and somebody who works for Legacy didn't see eye to eye, or something happened, or under my impression in my contract, I was supposed to fight in May, and everything was supposed to be that way. And then they were changing it, and then they weren't going to pay me the amount they said they were going to pay me, and a couple variables really makes it uncomfortable to want to work with somebody in the future.
Right, definitely. Even though you haven't fought since, basically a year, I mean, the last time you fought was February 16th, you're not the typical guy who, is released from the UFC and is trying to rebuild. You're on a 4-fight win streak. You're looking better than ever. You're not the typical guy out there. You had a lot of momentum going, before all this contract stuff and all this bouncing from promotions. Do you feel that your momentum is still the same, like it was after the Che Mills, or do you think it took a hit?
You know what? People always talk, and MMA, it has a lot to do with momentum. But for me, it didn't really matter about momentum, even throughout my whole career. I've gone on 3-fight win streaks, lost 2 fights, win 3 fights, up and down. But I think, for me, I'm just, I was hitting my stride, and I think if you watch, like, my last couple fights, you would see that, I was picking my shots, I was picking my, getting takedowns when I shot every time, and I was, just winning, beating people decisively, and basically I've just continued doing that, continued training with the best of the best in Vegas and stuff like that, and honestly, I'm really, I've been going into these gyms, and I did some real estate and some other jobs. I can make ends meet, but when it comes down to the end of the day, and I step into a gym and I start throwing punches and kicks and takedowns, and you put it all together, I'm extremely talented in mixed martial arts, and for me to just push it to the wayside, push it to the side is just, to me, it was unacceptable. A year off was enough, and I didn't even want that. I wanted to stay active the whole time, but, it is what it is. Took the year off, and, I feel great. I feel like I'm a bottle of wine. I just keep getting better with time, so...
Training-wise, are you doing anything differently? Or are you still keeping, the same coaches, same training partners, same guys around you?
The same jiu-jitsu, training with Drysdale Jiu-Jitsu. McSweeney, I was working with James McSweeney for a while, and before that I was working with Mark Beecher. But Beecher moved out to Ohio. McSweeney went on like a world tour of fighting and doing seminars and this, that, and the other thing. So I'm working with Ken Hahn now, and dude's legit. He worked with Johnny Hendricks for a big period of his career. He worked with Frank Mir for most of his career, and he's a great trainer. He's trained at the Fairtex camp, and he takes care of me. He trains me like 3-4 times a week. He watches me spar. Gives me a little rub down afterwards. It's legit. It's top-notch work.
Now, coming up on February 28th, you're going to be taking on Michael Kuiper. What are your thoughts about him as an opponent?
Michael Kuiper is extremely talented. His record coming into the UFC was 12-0. I know his record in the UFC is 1-3. But he fought tough guys. He fought Tom Lawler, Rafael Natal. I don't know who the last. He fought like an English guy his last fight, and he got guillotined. He's a tough guy. He's got decent takedown defense, submission defense, and decent striking. But I think my athleticism and just my overall skill set is going to be a little overwhelming, and I think I'll be able to just capitalize with my experience and technique.
Now, this fight is going to be fought at middleweight. Are you making a permanent move to middleweight, or is this just for this fight?
Just for this fight. I can always go back to welterweight, or I can go up to 205. I'm down for whatever. I train with everybody at the gym. I train with heavyweights to the 25-pounders, So, I really don't care where I fight. I'm pretty tough, so as long as, they're offering me money and the other guy shows up and it's all good and everybody says what they're going to do and they do it, everything's good, and I'll be there for sure. But yeah, I'll play welterweight to 205.
So you're a money weight now?
Yeah, well, whatever's available. Right. If there's a fight I want,
right.
I'll definitely take it. But I'm not trying to get back into the UFC at like 205.
Right, sure.
Get back into the UFC at 185 at this point right now. Right. But if I got the call and they needed a last place replacement or something like that at middleweight, or somebody called me at 205, I'd be more than happy to oblige. I walk around about 200 pounds, so.
So the plan is to make it back to the UFC. You're not completely done with them. You would like another chance if they offered you one.
Well, I started there.
Yeah.
I was doing pretty good there,
right.
And I use medical marijuana.
Right.
It's not, medical steroids, so
right.
it's not allowed. But it's whatever, and if they signed me, if they called me up tomorrow and said, hey, you can fight again for us, I would probably quit smoking until they fired me again or told me I was released. Because I wouldn't take a chance again. But, I don't know. I would like to finish my career in the UFC. That's where I started. That's where all the money is. That's where people are watching. That's where it is. That's just what it is. Unfortunately, they don't see eye to eye with me on, the medical views, and I think, I guess they think marijuana is a performance-enhancing drug, and I'm just, me and Nick Diaz are just
Right.
on that new marijuana that just makes you a better fighter. So it's really whatever. I'm just trying to fight, get my black belt. If I get back in the UFC, that would be awesome. If it doesn't happen, okay, whatever, But yeah, it would be nice to get back there. I would really like to get back there, at least get my ass kicked and then get fired. That would be cool, But like I said, it's whatever.
When was the last time you talked to Joe Silva or anyone from the UFC?
I haven't talked to any of the higher-ups, I talked to the UFC tax guy because, I got paid last year and I was doing my taxes, so I needed my 1099. But, and I talked to, people that work for the UFC, not the higher-ups, of course. And, it's the same old, Basically, I know what I got to do to get back in. I just got to win fights and make it where it's worth their while. Where I know if I can make them money, they'll put me back there. So that's basically my goal. And Titan's helping me out greatly. They're allowing me to fight for them, especially co-main event. And and they've just been extremely flexible. So I'm excited for everything. I'm excited for the future. 2014 so far has been a lot better than 2013. So
definitely.
I'm excited.
Definitely. Now, you brought up a couple times your manager, your old manager. You've said that a couple times. Are you managed by anyone now, or are you solo right now?
Solo, just like it was, when I first got to the UFC. Just solo, man. It seems like every time I get a manager, and I've worked with guys like Malky Kowal, and I've worked with other management companies, and the bottom of at the end of the day, they're not. Most of them aren't there for your best interest.
Right.
Unfortunately, they're there for themselves. They're trying to be part of the show, but they can't fight. They can't do it. Right. So it's their way of being part of the sport. And, honestly, most of them, and it's, I know it's their job, but it's like they're hustling. They're just trying to get more money out of people so they get a bigger cut of what people give you, know? So, I don't know. I've never had a positive, real relationship with a manager, unfortunately.
But do you really need one?
You need one. Yeah. You need one if nobody. And I'm not saying this, just to sound like a dick or anything, but you need one if you're coming up the ranks. To get that opportunity, to get put in a spot. Because you can always hype yourself up, but a manager can probably hype you up a little better, or get you in a spot to prove yourself, Well, if you're looking for pro fights or this and that, and your record's 3-0, it might be hard for you to find pro fights, just because, you're not known, so nobody wants to put you on TV or anything. You're undefeated, so you might be tough and dangerous, so they don't want to take a chance against you. And, it gets hard, but if you have a manager, it's a little easier. They can get you fights overseas. They talk a lot more, Right. So for me, I just sit at my house. I go on Facebook. I get 3 fight offers a week still. So, Fortunately for me, I get offers. So that's cool. But I know for a lot of people, half the fighting is fighting to get a fight.
Right.
And that's why a lot of guys take fights on a week's notice, and then they get beat up, and the record just keeps going down. And it sucks because they're just looking for an opportunity to prove themselves that's fair. But if you can't, get a fight for a certain time, it's how are you going to train for that fight? And if you can only get random fights, how are you going to be your best,
Right.
So, MMA, I've said it before, it's a cruel mistress. It's a tough sport with not too many rewards, other than being a badass. So, yeah, that's about it.
And I think you hit it right on the head when you said that, there's a fight in getting a fight, because it seems like, I don't know what's harder, the outside the cage stuff or the inside the cage stuff. It's crazy.
Outside. Yeah. Outside the cage stuff's way harder.
Yeah.
Way harder. Fighting in a cage is the fun part. It's the easy part. It's why we do all the other shitty shit, is so we can get in that cage and fight in front of people,
Yep, definitely. Now, over this year layoff that you've had, do you have any regrets about all the things that have happened? Anything that you wish didn't happen? Anything that you wish you could take back? Anything like that?
No, not at all. I would say maybe when I was released from the UFC, I maybe should have bit my tongue a little bit. But at the same time, I got fired for using the medical marijuana that I'm prescribed in the state where the UFC is from and I live in. Mm-hmm. So it's just crazy to me that would happen. And then I see other fighters fail for steroids, marijuana, other substances, and, they get suspended or they get a fine, but nobody's getting fired. Mm-hmm. The only other fighter I know that got fired was Thiago Silva, but he pulled a gun on some people.
Right.
He's the only dude I know that got fired after, I think he won his last fight, too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's the only, me and him, and he had to pull a gun on people to get fired. I smoked a joint 3 weeks before my fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The doctor said it was okay, but the UFC didn't.
Yeah.
You can take steroids and Oxycontin. Ask Chris Liebman. Mm-hmm. He just prescribed them, and he's allowed to take them before he competes.
Yeah, I hear you. Matt, is there anything, obviously, you're not the typical guy who's, out on the regional circuit because they were released from the UFC. You're in a unique situation because you're better than ever. You're hot right now, 4-fight win streak, all that. But is there anything in this fight coming up on the 28th that you're looking to prove, anything you're looking to showcase against Michael Kuiper?
Well, I think my return back to middleweight, I'm going to have a lot more power than I usually do. The cut to 170 is really hard on me.
Right.
And I think, I'm not going to say I'm gonna for sure. You can never know till you get to the fight. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to make a pretty loud statement with this fight. I'm pretty sure. I think my athleticism and my power is going to speak for itself when I get in there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be statement enough. I'm not going to probably have to say anything.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Matthew, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Yeah, I got some sponsors. Todd from the Retail Design Group up in Canada has been repping me since day one, so shout out to that guy and his fam. And shout out to the Rooster, always a good supporter of the mixed martial arts community in Vegas. And I want to thank High Times for sponsoring me for my upcoming fight and also allowing me to judge the LA Cannabis Cup this past 2014.
Matthew, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it. Good luck February 28th at Titan FC 27 against Michael Kuiper.
Thank you very much, man.